Yes. Notice I'm sitting in the dark. Why? Because I'm very tired of that stupid light. But you can see me. So today we are going to continue our discussion of Greek culture, and hopefully you have watched that YouTube video above, which actually is quite entertaining. Just because something is from ancient Greece and ancient Rome doesn't mean that it has to be necessarily boring. But yeah, that cute little retelling of the story of Oedipus Rex. And so, with that, let us continue. As it says there, the Greeks also developed comedy. Comedy, once again, is a humorous way of looking at the challenges every human being faces. Aristophanes was an early comic. He was a satirist, Satirist. Excuse me. Satire comes from Saturn. Saturn is one of the Greek gods, Greek demigods, who continually ate their own children, but that's another story. Aristophanes was, like I said, a satirist, a comic, and he wrote the book, or not the book, the story Clouds, which made fun of Socrates, and another one called Lysistrata, which concerned the women of Athens having a sex strife, which, to be real honest, that was a comedy because remember, Athenian Greek men didn't give women a lot of credo. And finally, Deus Ex Machina. I'm telling you, these Greek plays, for as little as they had in terms of um, special effects, were pretty special. I mean, their plays, once again, the theaters, as you saw with Rick Steves, were acoustic. The sound would carry a long way. The theaters were acoustic, and also the Greeks used sound effects in their plays. I mean, like they learned how to make the sounds of a clopping horse. They learned how to make the sounds of a thunderstorm. They and rain by clapping pieces of wood together, and those special effects were referred to as Deus Ex Machina, which means God in the machine. They had trap doors on the stage where a character could disappear. And another thing that Greeks infused in their plays, which will be something that will be picked up later on, the Greeks were smart enough to know that most of their audience who were watching a play were probably drunk, probably dead drunk, because remember, plays began as a celebration to the god Bacchus. Bacchus is the god of wine and partying. And before watching the plays, you can bet, and during watching the plays, you can bet that the Greeks were jacking down a lot of vino. And they would get really involved. The spectators would get really involved in the play. And so it wasn't that they had to be careful because oftentimes when these plays would get started, the drunken crowd would see somebody they didn't like and they would actually try to rush the stage and kill the person, take part in the play. And so what the Greeks did, which will be later on taken up, they began to insert humor at certain points. When tension got too high, the Greeks would bring on a character that would say something funny or do something funny, which would cut the tension so they could get back to telling their story. Now, dance and music were considered a part of the Athenian idea of education. Yeah, the Athenians, one big contribution they made to Western man is their idea of education, how to educate a person. And unlike the Spartans, the Athenians came up with the idea that today we call a liberal arts education. You say, what does that mean? Well, if you ever had older brothers, sisters who've gone to colleges and universities, and they pay tons of money to go, and you sit there and you listen to them complaining not only about the amount of money they have to pay, why am I majoring in nursing and I have to take a stupid art course? Or why do I have to take PE? It doesn't have anything to do with what I'm studying in the future. And the answer is blame the Greeks. You see, the Greeks believed that the way to educate a person was not to just educate one facet of his life. The idea to educate a person was to educate the whole individual, to make him, yes, a person who could read, but also who could sing, and also who could be an athlete, and also who could perform the arts, act, be an orator. And today that's called liberal arts education. And today that's why when you go to colleges, most colleges have a liberal arts tradition that when you go, today they call them gen eds, requirements. You still have to take them. They have nothing to do with your major, but the idea is you are developing the whole man or woman as it were. So, all Athenian males were expected to learn basic rudiments of song and dance as a part of educating the whole mind. At banquets, trained slaves and prostitutes provided the musical entertainments. Plato thought that a child's education should only consist of two things: gymnastics, which was discipline for the body, and poetry, which was discipline for the soul. Spartans, on the other hand, as you know, designed all their dance and music around military activities. The term music, by the way, which is on your test, actually comes from the Greek word meaning of the muse. Now you're saying, who's this guy, the muse? The muse was a character. The Greeks believed there was a character called the muse, and this person was the inspiration for creativity, or this being. The muse was a being, a spirit that inspired creativity, and hence the word music. Yeah. What does that say about the nature of music? That it is inspired and inspiring. Who doesn't like some kind of music? Some kind of music. I mean, it's one thing that all higher level creatures and even some lower level creatures like. They like some kind of music. So, what were the classic Greek instruments? The lyre, Lyre, and you say, what's that? Politician? No. The lyre is a harp, a stringed instrument, harp. The aulus was the other. The aulus was a horn that had two pipes that opened up into two horns, and it was called the aulus, and both will be on your test. The lyre, harp, the aulus, two horns. Greek theories of music, however, were more influential than Greek music itself. In other words, there's not a lot of Greek music that hung around. For example, we still have the 7-time musical scale from the Greeks. Pythagoras believed that this proved that math influenced music and everything else. I have heard that math and music go together. I don't know. I'm actually not terrible at math, but I don't get music. I'll just say that right off the bat. I don't get music. I mean, I like it, but I mean, I cannot recreate it. You know what I'm saying? If you ever watch, a long time ago, Steve Martin made a film called The Jerk. Good film. And The Jerk is about this white guy who's really just really stupid. And he is adopted by a poor African American family in the South. And he can't figure out. If you ever seen Steve Martin, he's white as me. And he can't figure out, he doesn't know he's adopted, And, it goes into funny stuff like, for example, the prejudice stereotype that African Americans are good with music. Well, this guy, music, he doesn't. Well, that's me. Yeah, I don't get music. All right. So anyway, modes are sections of music. Thank you very much. Like I said, I don't understand music. Of course, what the Greeks are most remembered for is something called philosophy. Philosoph. What does the word philosophy mean? It means the love of wisdom. What questions does philosophy seek to answer? What are the meanings of life? What is the meaning of life? Why are we here? What is the purpose of that? The love of knowledge. The sophists were a group of people who questioned, who were philosophers. Protagoras, who said that man is the measure of all things, worth noting. Why were the sophists looked upon as morally corrupt by people like Socrates, Plato, and their followers? Because they accepted the wisdom of the day. Ah, yes, the school of Hellas. Socrates developed a school, in other words, a group of followers. They were called the school of Hellas. And notice again that word Hellas. In the Greeks referred to themselves as the Hellenes, or people of the sun. And their patron goddess was Apollo, the god of the sun. And so, yeah, when they call themselves the school of Hellas, that's what it means. Hellas. In fact, helium, the gas helium, is what you find on much of on the sun. It's the gas of fire. So, what was the school of Hellas? It was a school of philosophers that was organized by Socrates. And Socrates, people didn't like him because he was a pest. He kept asking questions, too many questions. And, and his questions would make you look bad. Like he'd ask things like, what is beauty? What is truth? And then you'd give him an answer, and he would answer you with another question. That in the end, you just said, I don't know. And that made that person look bad. What became of Socrates? Well, eventually, Socrates, who they call the gadfly, you say Gadfly, what's a gadfly? A gadfly is a very annoying bug. And eventually, Socrates just hacked the wrong people off. And when he did, he was put on trial on the charge of corrupting the youth of Athens. And he was found guilty, and his sentence was he was forced to drink hemlock. Hemlock is a poison, and hemlock is a poison that begins in the extremities to basically deaden the nerves. And it works its way up through the body until eventually it deadens the nerves that control the vital organs. And so, yeah, he drank that. He was convicted, and they wanted Socrates, the fathers of Athens. They convicted him, but they basically also said, okay, you're going to drink hemlock, and then they turned their back on him, purposefully, basically leaving the door open, leaving him, if he could have, if he wanted to, he could escape. He would, in fact, his younger followers said, the younger followers, they said, why don't you escape? Well, he said he couldn't escape because if he escaped, then they were right and he was wrong. And he would not accept that. Well, okay. I'm going to end this here. We are closing in on the end of this unit. Yes, we are. Page 5 of 7. We'll finish up with the philosophers and Alexander the Great, and then we'll have our test. Today is the 27th. I'm thinking maybe Thursday. But anyway, so enough of that. So I'm going to let you guys go and have a good day.